Hey my dudes, welcome back to another relaxing video of Doodles with me, the Doodler. This video is going to be intended to help you sleep, help you clear your mind, help you get rid of some stress that you're holding on to, and just overall allow you to relax. So it's best if you find a place to be comfortable, like a chair, or maybe you're laying down, and just tune in and just kind of let your brain focus on the page and the doodles and maybe a story I'm going to decide to tell you. So let's get into some doodles. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story that I'm just going to make up on the spot. One that I've never said before, one that I've never thought about before, and we're just going to see what comes out of my mouth and what I decide to draw to help illustrate the story. So let's get started. So once upon a time, that's how all good stories start. Let's say there was a shrine and a maiden that lived in the shrine. And she was, let's say, like a groundskeeper at this old shrine up in the mountains. We'll just draw like a little torii gate here, just to kind of indicate the location of the shrine. Just like that. There we go. And maybe just like a little building in the background. Something maybe off to the side. There. Just like that. So the shrine maiden that lived here, she was very lonely. And she would, once she was done doing her duties every day around the grounds of the shrine, she would sit by a small pond, right by the pond, and she would just kind of read or relax. But most of the time, she was very alone by herself. Let's see if we can draw a nice little pond here for her. There we go. Something like that. Just some quick doodles today. There we go. That's our little maiden right there. And so here's our little pond. She would sit here. Maybe there's some rocks up over on the side. Maybe some grass. There we go. Just kind of around the edge here. Maybe a couple more ripples, just like that. Maybe she would eat lunch. But she was very lonely up in the shrine by herself. And she would sit by this pond, and she would just kind of be sad and wish that she had some company or something like that. And then she heard, maybe off to her left, some sort of cry. So she went into the forest that was on the grounds of the temple towards the crying that she heard. And now we're just going to draw some trees just to kind of indicate that she's going into the forest. There we go. Something like that. Just like that. We're just doing quick and simple illustrations today. Nothing fancy. Just to go along with the story we're telling. This must be a beautiful, beautiful temple ground. There we go. Just like that. But as I said, this temple maiden was very lonely, keeping it up all on her own. So she went into the forest. As she got closer to the cries, she noticed that there was a fox, and it was trapped in a hunter's trap. Even though there were signs in the forest. Please no trapping. Please no hunting. Because this is sacred grounds. There we go. We'll make his nose just a little bigger, just like that. And then we're going to make the area around his eyes darker, just like that. Maybe a big fluffy neck. Laying on its side, perhaps. There we go. And then maybe its leg back here is trapped in some sort of contraption made by trappers or hunters that were illegally trapping on the sacred grounds. And it was crying over and over again, just like that. Maybe saying something like, "Please rescue me. I thought this was safe." There we go. There we go. I added some trees behind him just to kind of keep up with the imagery of him being in the forest. Maybe some rocks here and there. There we go. But here's the fox crying out, his foot in a trap. And he was completely convinced that he was going to die here. But the handmaiden, she came and she released the trap. Perhaps she undid the string and he was free. The handmaiden sat in amazement that the fox did not run away as soon as she released it. She looked upon the fox and she sat there with it. She looked at him and he looked at her, just like this. We're just going to draw a quick fox looking up at her. No trouble with that. There we go. We'll add some little whiskers like that. But he's got a big fluffy neck. There. And it sat there. It didn't run away. Doesn't have to be good, just kind of quick, just like that. And I'm making this story up as I go as well. There we go. So the two of them sat there together, and the maiden was wondering why the fox wasn't running away, and the fox was just staring at her. kind of dug in to his big fluffy chest or his big fluffy neck. Maybe, turned his head like this and dug out a string. A red string that came from his body, and he held it in his mouth for her. Just like this. The handmaiden, she grabbed the string and tied it to her ring finger on the left hand, just like this. Right here, right there. There we go. We're just gonna draw some fingers here. There. Something like that. Come down here. Pinky's over here. We're not very good at hands, but that's okay. There we go. And our thumb is there. And the handmaiden tied it there. And the red string was attached to the fox. We're going to draw the Mr. Fox one more time. There. Big fluffy neck, long ears, and the string was attached to his neck and the thick fur. And then suddenly the string disappeared. But the maiden could still feel some sort of connection to this fox. And when the string disappeared, the fox turned around and went back into the forest. One day, a little while later, the trappers came back to check their trap and noticed that it was missing. Or maybe they noticed that there was a string, but it was cut by the maiden, and their trap was broken and laid there, and the trappers got angry, and they told themselves that they would burn the temple and to punish the maiden that messed with their trap. And we had to turn the page over to make more room. So inside, we're going to draw a window here. Like an old school window. Just has maybe wooden bars here. Wooden plants. But outside, we'll draw shapes of the trappers that have come to set the temple on fire because they saw that their trap was messed with. And we'll draw the sleeping maiden inside, just like this. Long hair over her covers, just like that. Really long hair. Beautiful long hair. Maybe she even wears her little maiden hat to bed. She's committed to her role. There we go, just like that. And she's got her blanket here, curled up around her. she's laying down. There. This is the maiden. She's asleep. Just like that. But the dark shapes in the background were the hunters and the trappers that knew she was responsible for breaking their trap. So they threw a match into her bedroom. Just like that. And slowly the flames started to climb in her room, all across the temple, and smoke was everywhere. It was covering everything. The flames were climbing and climbing, but the maiden, she kept sleeping. She was in a deep sleep, and lots of people lose their lives this way, usually from the smoke first. They suffocate. There we go. Smoke everywhere. And the evil trappers ran back to hide, ashamed of their decision. Just like this. But suddenly, the string on her finger reappeared, and it led who knows where, outside of the temple, but it was tugging. It was tugging very hard, and it finally made the maiden wake up. And she's wondering what's tugging at her finger. And now the maiden sits up quickly and notices that the temple is on fire. And she's terrified. And she doesn't know what to do. And she thinks she's trapped inside. But the tugging at her finger breaks her out of this trance. And she looks down again at her finger and remembers she needs to leave. So she follows the string. So she's made it outside of the temple, but the flames have taken over everything. And we're going to draw flames and smoke coming out of the temple. This is the doorway. Just like this. Flames everywhere. There we go. Just like this. Great pillars of flame taking over the windows, taking over the walls. The flames are everywhere. But she somehow managed to make it out. Otherwise, she would still be in there, asleep. But she runs out and collapses to the ground. And she's coughing into her sleeve, because she's just been surrounded by that awful smoke. There we go, just like this. There, she's collapsed. Her hands here, there. Once she's able to compose herself, she starts to cry. She looks back at the temple she was supposed to take care of, and sees that it's completely on fire, and she doesn't know how to feel about this. So she can't help but cry. she feels like a failure. And she's about to give up when suddenly her left finger starts pulling again. And she looks down, or she turns around maybe. Maybe there's something there. There she is, crying at first. But then the red string is behind her, and it's tugging again. And so she looks behind her. And maybe she sees not a fox, but a man who's come, and he has the red string attached to his finger. We're going to make his eyes dark, just like how the fox's eyes were dark. And we're going to kind of make his nose kind of pointed. There we go, just like that. Maybe he's got short hair just like this. There we go, just like that. Maybe he's got long ears. And he's giving her this smile that he does feel sorry for her, but she really doesn't need to be crying. There we go. Let's see what this man looks like, who's come and saved the temple maiden from the fires. There we go. And he's wearing, traditional robes. Like that. Just like that. And he's holding up his hand. And there, he's holding up his hand here. And the red string is coming off of that. And the temple maiden realizes that this is the fox that she saved in the forest. He leans forward, picks her up, and kisses her forehead. The maiden, she stopped crying, but she's still very sad. Her cheeks are still a little wet from crying. And he holds her shoulder, something like that, and kisses her forehead. And suddenly, the maiden gets very sleepy. Just like that. Just a quick kiss on the forehead. And then the maiden finds herself in her bed, fast asleep. There we go. That's just a sleeping face. There we go, in her long hair here. Just like that. And her blanket, she's all cozy and wrapped up. Just like that. Maybe she's all cozy and wrapped up like you are. Nice and comfortable. There we go. Hands there, yeah. There we go. There. Maybe she sleeps with her shrine hat on. Who knows? Here's the window that the hunt trappers threw in the match. But here she is, back in bed. After that kiss. And then she wakes up and realizes everything's okay. Everything was just a terrible, terrible nightmare. And then she wakes up and gets out of bed. And after she's done all of her groundskeeping and sees that the temple is perfectly fine and that everything was just a dream, she goes back to her pond to sit and rest. And maybe eat lunch or something. There we go, just like this. Her legs are out beside her. And she's kind of back in her own little mind. Maybe she's sad again, looking down. She's telling herself this, it felt so real, and she was convinced that it was all a reality. And then she's back to being alone again. But then, in her left hand, she feels another tugging. There we go. Just like that. And she looks up and sees the fox sitting across from her in the pond. Just like that. And he looks to be smiling. And then she looks up at him. And she smiles as well. And starts blushing. And she realizes it wasn't a dream. That everything did happen. But the fox, with his kiss, was able to turn everything back to the way it was. And so the two sat by this pond many, many days and shared a long life together. And she never felt alone anymore, thanks to her friend, the fox, and this connection they shared. Just like that. Connected by the red string of fate. Just like that. And there you go, my dudes. I hope you enjoyed my story. I made it up just along the way. I didn't rehearse anything, and I didn't, write anything down, a script or anything. It just came straight from my brain, and I'm sure you can do exactly the same thing. So we can go back and maybe look at the beginning. There's our shrine here. Our lonely maiden sitting by the pond, and she hears a crying. And then she goes into the forest to investigate. And she sees a poor fox trapped. And she's able to release the trap. She cuts it, remember? And then the two of them look at each other, and he pulls out a red string for her, and she ties it to her left index, or not her index, but her left ring finger, and she's attached, connected to the fox. And then on the back, we had the angry hunters and trappers throw in a match while she was asleep, and she wasn't waking up as the flames and the smoke were building, and she felt a tugging on her finger, and it finally woke her up, but she was in shock and couldn't move, but the string kept tugging. So then she ran out of the burning shrine, coughing, and she looks up at it in absolute devastation, because this was her place to worship, her place to take care of, and it was burning. But she feels the tugging again and sees that we've got a man behind her who's smiling. He's got long ears, and the string is attached to his finger. And then one simple kiss on the forehead puts the maiden back into a deep sleep. And she wakes up, and everything's back to normal. And they sit by the pond for many, many days, sharing that string, that connection, and she doesn't feel lonely anymore. I really hope you enjoyed the story, my dudes. If you did, please hit that like button, and if you want to see more of this type of content, please hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so that you're notified every single time I upload. That would mean the world to me. This was my first video of this kind, where we do an interactive story and illustrate along the way. Please leave me a comment and let me know any other legends or any other stories that you want me to try and attempt to illustrate quickly and whisper the story so you can get some sleep. So thank you so much for sticking around, if you did, to the end of the video. And I'll catch you next time, my dude.